The core of enterprise innovation lies in a unified, flexible platform that can power secure, scalable, and extensible business applications. And that's exactly what we'll be exploring today in SAP BTP Core Revealed. Platform capabilities that power enterprise innovation. Welcome everyone to today's live expert session. We are thrilled to have you join us. I have the pleasure of having Alex Braun, Director Product Management at SAP, joining me. Alex is a product leader at SAP with more than 18 years of experience driving innovation from research labs into global products. He began in business development for SAP's Germany's consulting organization, moved into SAP research working on e-mobility and IoT, and later led product efforts across HCP, SAP, and BTP, covering IoT, data management, big data, Kubernetes, and technical services. Currently, he is part of the product management team for BTP Fabric, working in a cross-product capacity. In addition, we have the pleasure of having Boris Saske joining us, both in the chat as well as live for the Q&A part. And now, without further ado, over to you, Alex.
Thanks, Tanya, for hosting us. Yeah, it's really a pleasure to be invited to this talk. So let me share my screen so that you can see what it's all about today. So today it's the SAP BTP Core Revealed, platform capabilities that power enterprise innovations. And maybe you wondered when you signed up for this session what the BTP Core now is and what we mean by platform capabilities. So when I personally thought about the word core, the first image that came to my mind was an apple. And there might be some reasons why people buy apples. Yeah? It could be that they are hungry and need a little snack. It might be that they want to take something with them for later. It's easy to carry without much packaging, so you don't have to throw anything away, and you are environment friendly and sustainable and so on, or because they just like apples. They like the look. It's very fresh and clean. Some people like the taste, or it's that it's a healthy fruit and has a lot of nutritional benefits. But really no one, or I would say almost no one, buys an apple for its core. So the core, it's firm. It just contains the carpels and the seeds inside, and it doesn't taste very good. So most of the time we don't even think about it. So once we have eaten the flesh, we usually simply throw away the core. But yet an apple wouldn't exist without its core. So the tasty flesh that grows around the core together with the stem connects the apple to the tree. And from there, it receives everything it needs to grow. So the core provides structure. It provides even small seeds, which are which have everything inside to grow a new apple tree. So in other words, the core is kind of essential to the apple. And even if it's not the part we pay the most attention to. So ironically, I'm allergic to apples, so I don't actually like them myself, but I think the analogy works somehow. So let's dive into the core of the Business Technology Platform. What I plan to cover today is, first, let's see why we have this core and what it can do. Yeah. So an introduction of covering what an IT department needs to do, and this is mainly our target audience for the core. And then we will talk about the capabilities we have in the core. We will talk a bit about some of the services which provide these capabilities and also the benefits they provide. And then I want to wrap it up with some kind of an outlook, what else you can expect, where you could start maybe further exploring what the core capabilities can do. So you might have seen this diagram a few times when you are in the SAP world. It's mainly the the overview of all the different solutions that we as SAP have in our portfolio. So the well-known cloud ERP with things like financial management or human capital management, customer experience solutions, all of that. Yeah, you can get them with an industry-specific flavor, together with sustainable applications which help you there. There are other applications that bring you with a business transformation. And then on top of that, we have the dual agents, or the agentic or the AI-powered layer, which allows you an easy access to data functionality and capabilities in the business application, so to say. Below that, there's the business data cloud, which provides easy access to data and analytics capabilities. And everything is kind of powered by the business technology platform. But this is about features and functions. And if you look at how an IT organization has to look at running all of this, it gets a bit more complex. It's not about just consuming something, it's really about running such stack. And even if you are in a SaaS world, there are certain aspects of things you have to take care of. So, for example, it's about managing subscriptions. It's about who can access which application or which solution. It's about managing entitlements, who can use which resources in a platform world, who gets access to which services. It's about managing consumptions, like how much did I use of what, and so what's the bill at the end of the month that I have to pay. It's about lifecycle management or identity and access management. Operations is, of course, at the center of running a complex IT landscape. And you can see there is many more stuff that an IT department and the CIO who is running the IT department needs to take care of. There's another perspective on what an IT department has to take care of. On the one side, it's good to look at standardizing certain things because it provides kind of guardrails, some governance to your IT landscape. So that not everything is possible, but you say clearly how things should be done, and you can kind of have control over what is running on your IT landscape. You have to take care of security, of course. So in the best possible way for all of the landscapes or all of the IT solutions in the same way. And it's about efficiency from an operations perspective, efficiency from a deployment perspective, and even efficiency from a cost perspective. So that is kind of not contradicting, but it needs to be in sync or in balance with innovation. It's about where innovation is about flexibility, and it's about using the latest tools, the latest technologies, the latest services, and doing all of that in a modern development environment, and being able to grow and easily scale from a little prototype to a productive enterprise-grade application. That is kind of competing with standardizing everything and providing guardrails. So this is also a job that the IT department usually has to do, balancing out standardization versus innovation. And another thing that is really important, especially because we run the platform ourselves, that's I would say one of the main purposes of the BTP Fabric, the organization I'm working for, is you have a lot of functionality there, and this is usually the reason why customers buy a certain solution. But they usually leave if the solution is not available, if it's not resilient enough, if it doesn't perform enough. So you need to take care also of the non-functional parts, and you need to provide a solid technology foundation for all the solutions that you run. So this is kind of the environment an IT department has to deal with. And this is exactly where the core platform capabilities now come into play. So here you can see under the nice little architecture of the SAP portfolio, the 4 areas of platform capabilities which we provide. So one is application lifecycle management. We have security, we have interoperability, and we have administration and operation. And let me dive a bit deeper into what that means in the end. It starts with, okay, what is core platform capabilities? It's a business-centric catalog of services in the end, which on the one side help you quickly develop extension applications, for example, or help you easily integrate with existing data, existing applications from SAP's portfolio. And at the same time, it provides services for efficiently operating and automating your operations processes, your end-to-end business processes across everything that you have in an SAP landscape. So it starts with setting up cloud environments, for example, so that you can, for the job that you have to fulfill for the project that you want to start, that you have the right set of services, that you have runtime options where you can run in the end your applications and your workloads, and that you can control kind of the way how things are developed and are moved into production. The core platform capabilities also play a major role in making the BTP available on several infrastructures of choice. So either they are managed by us, by SAP, or they are managed by our partners. I will talk about that at the end of the presentation, so you better understand what I mean by that. Core platform capabilities also help you to stay safe and compliant by using services which we have in the platform, for example, for authentication, for user management, but also compliance services like data protection and privacy, or audit controls. And last but not least, it's about connecting your cloud applications or everything that you do in BTP with already existing applications that you might have. And this is especially important because not everything is already in the cloud. You might have services which are running in your own data centers, and you want to integrate them, of course, with what you do in BTP, for example. So diving a bit further into the capabilities. So what we have there in application lifecycle management is, for example, an end-to-end lifecycle management across the different landscapes you have, or the different systems you have. What I mean by that is you usually have in an enterprise environment a development system, or testing systems, and then finally the production system. So application lifecycle is their key to really bring applications in a controlled way to these different systems. We have standardized CI/CD pipelines, and we even can automate the deployment of such applications. It allows you to centrally configure applications and to do feature control by embedding a feature flag service, for example, in your application, and only activate features once they are already tested. You can make them available to certain user groups only. And it allows you, of course, to manage a runtime by, for example, scaling it up and down based on the required performance. And it also does provisioning and deprovisioning of full landscapes. On the security side, briefly mentioned already, we have services for identity management, authentication, and authorization across all the applications. So you have a central kind of a service where you can manage all your users and all the applications which require that kind of security can connect to that single instance of, for example, a user management solution. You can use these same services which we use in the platform for your own applications. So that means you do not have to think about something separate to manage your users, but you will use the same set of services we already have there for you. So you can build your applications with security by design and default built into it. There's central credential encryption and secrets management, for example. And from a compliance perspective, we provide services for audit logging and the respective compliance reporting. Moving on to administration and operations, there it's about a central management of your cloud systems, so to say. There you can manage accounts, create sub-accounts, connect them to each other. You can manage which services are available in which account for which purpose, which service plans, that means which kind of capabilities of a certain service are available in certain landscapes. So you can say, for example, for a certain project setup, only a certain set of services is available, and for a productive landscape, it might be a different one. It's also about unified monitoring and providing a visibility across all of the landscapes that you might have. What is also here in administration and operations, it's also about automated provisioning. So everything about detecting automatically changes, having automated workflows to fix things, maybe to restart service in case of a failure, and also being notified about anything that is happening in the platform. And let's conclude here the capabilities with the interoperability part. I already mentioned that it's about universal connectivity to systems. Either they could be from SAP or it could be non-SAP systems. They could be cloud systems or they could be on-premise systems. Interoperability also provides support for events, for example. So if you want to follow asynchronous integration patterns, we have services there. And all of that allows you to integrate with already existing applications from SAP and also with data stores that you might already have. So I don't want to go into every detail of this picture. I mean, this is kind of the complete overview of the services that are part of the core platform capabilities. There you can see they're also clustered in these capability areas. What I want to do now is take a few examples out of the different areas and talk briefly about the capabilities there. So let's start with, you see it here at the bottom with the so-called runtimes. If you start developing with BTP, it's a good thing to start with, to have a look at the BTP Developers Guide. There you get a lot of good recommendations, good guidelines, how you can start developing applications, self-contained or extensions to SAP applications. And what is usually good is to follow the best practices with coming from the cloud application programming model or the ABAP cloud model. So if you go into the developers guide, you get a lot of more information about how to leverage these programming models for certain use cases. And underlying to these programming models are the 3 runtimes that we offer in BTP. One is the ABAP environment, the second one is the Cloud Foundry runtime, and the third one is the Kyma runtime. So, and there's a reason why we have 3 different environments. One is if you are already familiar with ABAP, if you are familiar with the programming language, if you are living in an S4 world kind of, then it's a good way to also do your application development and extension development on BTP in the ABAP environment. Yeah? So that gives you a lot of common things, similarities with how you usually do ABAP development. If you are more in the cloud native world and want to start with it, but don't want to bother too much with the technical complexity, maybe then Cloud Foundry runtime is a good thing to start with, because there you don't have to think about the runtimes at all. It's more about really focusing on the development itself, and then the Cloud Foundry environment, it takes the burden from you to configure, I don't know, low-level services or connectivity, things like that within the platform. But if you have more complex applications and what would need more control over the environment, then the Kyma runtime is the right way to go, because this is a managed Kubernetes offering which provides you a lot of flexibility, on the other side a lot of responsibility. So you have to manage more than in the Cloud Foundry runtime, but as I said, there's the benefit of really being able to develop and run almost any use case. So could be microservices, could be even serverless stuff. So much about the runtime. But before we go into the runtime, so you have developed something, you need to bring that somehow onto the runtime. And for that, we have two services which are outlined here. One is continuous integration and delivery, and the other one is cloud transport management. So what does that mean? And let me show you briefly how we combine agile development with a controlled delivery approach, which is usually something that you want to have in an enterprise. So where you usually start as a developer is you have an IDE, and then you start developing stuff. And then you check in the code into some code repository, mainly Git-based code repositories. And from there on, you usually have kind of a CI/CD pipeline, which then starts bringing your code together with other artifacts, with building the code, with deploying it, and running test cases. And for that, we have the SAP Continuous Integration and Delivery Service, which is kind of a pipeline as a service offering from SAP with a lot of templates for sub-specific use cases, and it allows you to easily set up such a pipeline for development purposes. Yeah, so that is quite an agile approach. And as I said, what usually happens is the developer pushes his code into the GitHub repository, and then any changes detected there, it triggers a pipeline, which then builds the code together, deploys it, starts testing, and then even can notify the customer, the developer of I don't know, whether the build was successful, whether there were any test cases which failed, and so on. So this is usually something that we use in a development environment. Once we have then reached a state that the application is more or less done, you want to gain control back. Yeah, so it's no longer about really only agility, but it's about now you want to bring the code into production. Yeah, and what in enterprises usually exists is several different landscape or stages where you then want to bring the code to and do additional tests. Maybe you want to test it with real customer data, for example, or your real own data. So you have pre-production landscapes, for example, for that. And you want to do that in a controlled manner. So that means you need something that helps you organize this. And for that, we have cloud transport management, which gives you a change management process that allows you to really control how applications developed are being transferred to different stages of your landscape. What you can also do here is you can audit the whole process. It's documented what you can do there, so that you have an audit trail. And because usually you have an integrated approach to develop stuff, that means on BTP you might develop an extension, and at the same time you do modifications in other solutions, and you want to synchronize that. The cloud transport management works together with the cloud application lifecycle management solution, so that you can bring everything in sync, so that in the end you have a functioning end-to-end process with artifacts from BTP, which you developed, and stuff that is, for example, also developed in S/4HANA or with other artifacts which are required for such an integrated business process. So now we have something in production, so to say. We have a runtime chosen. We have it run through the pipeline. We transported it to the production system. And now we have the problem that we need to observe its behavior. And how we do this is our approach. The applications which are usually in production produce a lot of telemetry data. It could be the SAP HANA cloud that creates such data. It's your own applications which produce data for telemetry reasons, or it could be the BTP services as such. Yeah? All of that is kind of stored in a central place. And the first step in order to observe what's going on is to detect the problem. Yeah? So you want to have a central tool where you can monitor your landscape. Yeah? It's not about isolated things like I have to look into this and this service. You want to have an end-to-end approach. Yeah? And for that, again, we have cloud application lifecycle management, which provides this unified monitoring. It provides the alerting mechanisms in case something is not going well, and it provides you first means to analyze what's going on. Yeah? So that means you are much faster when you have such a unified monitoring to detect the problem. What then happens usually is for a problem resolution, you need much more insights. You need to have some kind of a local observability, as we call it. And for that, we have a service in the platform called SAP Cloud Logging Service. This is the stuff where really the applications or the services write their data to. And if you now want to have more insights into behavior of a certain service, then it's you have to go to the local observability. And how that could look like is here, for example, you see here there's a horizontal trace as an example of a user interaction. You see here the different services which are part of that user interaction or this transaction. Yeah? So, and this is how it's displayed or shown in Cloud ALM, Cloud Application Lifecycle Management. And now you see that something is going wrong. In a certain service, maybe the response time is too long. And what you then can do is you can go into the local observability. In our case, in BTP, it's the SAP Cloud Logging Service, and do a much deeper analysis and try to find out what was the reason for that. Yeah. So this is how the central observability and the local observability play together to provide a holistic overview and to allow faster issue resolution. So next capability I want to talk about, we are jumping now to the next area, is about security and compliance. And before I show you an example of a service there, let me briefly cover the topic of security. As I said, we have a lot of services in this area in the platform, which for user management, for authentication, for authorization, and they are used heavily by ourselves, of course. We rely on that, but it's also something that you can use to develop your own applications. So there's one single user store, for example, that we provide, and as many applications you can always connect them to the same user store and manage centrally your access profiles, for example. What is also important is maybe not something that you use directly, but that BTP itself is certified and is therefore guaranteeing to kind of provide certain security requirements based on regulations, yet we have to fulfill based on industry standards. So this is kind of also important for a platform to provide also this kind of certifications and attestation. And when it comes to some kind of a guidance, it's always good if, to look at security recommendations from the colleagues. There's an extensive list, if you follow that link, of with over 340 security recommendations, how you should develop and set up your application in BTP. So that's always a good starting point to think about security and implement that in your application. What I wanted to talk about here as another example of security and compliance is the audit log service. So audit log, what it is all about? It's about ensuring that audit log relevant service is written to a certain place. So audit log data is something like you want to monitor certain critical interactions, like user has logged on or a user has changed something, a setting also has changed permissions of a certain other user. So all of that could be audit log relevant. And you want to just log that on the one side for having an audit trail, so that you can really see what happened in the platform in case you need to run an audit yourself to see whether you operate the platform in the right way or the applications. And there's also a possibility to look at the data and see whether there are certain patterns. From an enterprise threat detection perspective, you can use the same data for seeing, is there anything, I don't know, hitting your platform or hitting your application, and to see whether you have to think about any countermeasures, for example. So that's the audit log service provides a secure storage of such audit data for a default retention period. You can extend that retention period if you have certain requirements to store such data longer. And access to this audit log data is usually only for a limited parties or for a limited group of users. And so there's some kind of an authorization mechanism. As I said, you will use these logs then usually for finding out who is using what and when, who did what and when. And there are even solutions where you say a certain actions can only be performed if a certain log is stored in the audit log service, as for example in success factors that requires to write audit logs before even confirming to the user that a certain task has been completely done or has been successfully done. So this is also something that you can use, but it's also heavily used by our own services. So you can access all of these audit log data in a single audit log viewer. So audit logs provided by us or written by us, but also you can write your own audit logs from applications in the same audit log store and have a joint view on it. So coming to the next examples of services we have in there, we are going to administration and operations, and there I want to give it a little twist to something else, and that's about managing consumption. So it's about really seeing who is using which resources in the platform, which project is consuming which service, and how much of the resource is used. So in the cockpit, we have this cost and usage overview where you can really see then which resources have been used by which sub-account, which users, and so on. If you want to go a step further, you can even get this data via an API. So a lot of customers extract the usage data via this the usage data management service, and then can use this service in their internal cost control systems and do an analysis there. Are there any outliers, for example, or they can even do cost allocation within their company based on the data that they can get out of the usage data management APIs. So last but not least, let's go to interoperability. And there I picked examples from the connectivity space. So there we have different services helping you to manage technical connectivity, as I would call it. The first one is the SAP Destination Service, which allows you to kind of centrally manage connectivity settings. So instead of every application needing to store, I don't know, URLs, IP addresses, port numbers, usernames, certificates, and so on, you can do all of that in the SAP Destination Service in a central repository, so to say. And applications then can, I don't know, call up these destinations and can use the latest connectivity details from there, so to say. Then we have the connectivity service, which is actually doing the real connectivity kind of by calling the destination service, and then the connectivity service then knows which kind of destination it needs to call. So the connectivity service is usually used in combination with the SAP Cloud Connector, which is a piece of software that is installed in a customer landscape in their own data center, so to say. It kind of calls out to the connectivity service and establishes a secure connection, and you are completely in control of which systems you expose via the cloud connector to the connectivity service. There's another connectivity, a technical connectivity for a different purpose, which we call the private link service. And it provides connectivity within a specific hyperscaler environment. So you can connect your BTP landscape, so to say, with other accounts, for example, in AWS or in Azure. So that's the private link service. And to complete the picture, if you are more in a Kubernetes world, then we also have some offerings there. There's a connectivity proxy module, and there's the transparent proxy, which kind of provides similar things to an application, abstracting away the complexity of setting up connectivities and so on. The transparent proxy is a module, as I said, and it abstracts away the technical differences between different connectivity types. For the application, it's quite easy to call out to other solutions, be it somewhere in some other cloud in a VPC, or be it on premise in a customer landscape. So much about an overview of the capabilities and some of the services we have in there. I wanted to briefly touch upon the deployment options we have. So I was talking about the beginning of you can pick and choose the infrastructure of your choice. And what I mean by that is, okay, we are in a public cloud world, and you might have heard that we provide a lot of flexibility with regards to the hyperscalers that you can choose. And there might be many reasons why you want to have your workloads run on a specific hyperscaler, or there might be reasons why you want to run your workloads, your applications in a specific geography. And we provide that flexibility with the public cloud approach that we have. And at the moment, we have more than 40 locations, 40 data centers, where we offer to you the BTP. There's also a certain flavor of BTP in certain countries, because in certain countries there are specific requirements. For example, in the EU, the topic of accessing and processing personal data is quite important. So therefore, we have a flavor of BTP providing exactly that, so an EU access compliant version of the BTP. And the same is kind of true for other countries like Israel or United Arab Emirates, where we also have a certain flavor of BTP. complying with local regulations. And what is gaining more and more importance is what you see here on the right side, the sovereign cloud discussions we have, where you even have stricter obligations with regards to compliance. Yeah? And there we also have offerings. Also, the BTP is running in several sovereign cloud environments already. And just to complete the picture, what we are currently working on is something we call sovereign cloud on-site, where it's even possible in the future to run a BTP stack based on SAP's own cloud infrastructure stack within a customer data center. Yeah, it's delivered by us, it's operated by us, but it's really in a customer's data center. So just for your reference, if you want to know more about where all these services run, I provide you here with the link to the SAP Roadmap Explorer and also give you some indication about so where we run, which hyperscalers we have, and where we have our own data centers. So with that, let me briefly sum up what the main benefits of the core platform capabilities are. On the one hand side, it's about standardizing operations. So that means managing applications, infrastructure connectivity in a more or less the same fashion, in a very efficient way, so that it's less complex. You can streamline the processes by using the platform capabilities we provide, so that you can do efficient operations with lower overhead, and also can do fast issue resolution. Its second benefit is securing the applications. Security and compliance is always important if you run applications, and with the services we provide, I think we have a lot of good capabilities also to secure the applications themselves, but also the operations. And the third part is that the core platform capabilities also allow you to, on the one side, have a stable system, but on the other side, have enough flexibility to start small and then scale your solutions once they go in production, and then really need to have these enterprise grade capabilities, so to say, built in. So that was it about a brief overview of the core platform capabilities. Let me do some advertisement at the end. As you know, this is part of a bigger series. Just want to point out that there are two other very interesting sessions are coming up on March 24th. It's about building AI agents, and then in April 14th, it's about AI best practices. And even if you want to know more about the things I talked about, then you can see here a list of deep dives which we plan to do, and there you will learn more about the security services we have, about the runtimes we provide. So this is really if you want to have more details about the services I just briefly could touch today. And if you're interested in starting right away, without waiting for the deep dives, it's always good to go to the Discovery Center, because there you can test things out. There it's described how you can get access to a trial account. You can use the missions there to start exploring the stuff. That's a great source to start with. If you're interested in architecture patterns, this is the starting point for you. So if you really want to get your hands dirty, Discovery Center is the starting point. So, and with that, I'm at the end, and hand it back to you, Tanya.
Great. Thank you so much for your excellent presentation. Here we are. So the chat was very active, but actually Boris already answered the majority of the questions. Let me have a look. The one that I see open so far is, how is GDPR data managed in audit log service?
So the audit log service as such has no notion of GDPR, so to say. for that, we have another service we call data privacy integration. So you have to, you can kind of manage how personal data is handled in the platform. The audit log is there for storing kind of the events, how to deal with the personal data, and I kind of the retention periods you need for that. That is handled in a separate service.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And then there's a question, even though Boris did provide a link to further information, but maybe it will be of interest for many to give a quick, easy answer to the question. That is, can I imagine that sovereign cloud is a private cloud deployment?
Good question.
How would
whatever a private cloud deployment means. Yeah. So if you think private cloud in the sense of it's completely offline, so no access from the internet, then I would rather say no. So sovereign cloud, how we provide it at the moment, is still, of course, being able to be accessed, and that's the whole purpose of it. It's more about the level of sovereignty you have over certain aspects. So are you running next to other workloads like in a public cloud, or do you want to have it exclusively for you? How do you want to make sure that your data stays in a certain data center, I would call it. Private cloud is, I think, kind of a definition that where you have to be a bit more precise what that would mean for you. So for example, we also have an S/4HANA service offering called private cloud, which is accessible via the internet, but it's exclusively for one customer. That provides a certain level of sovereignty, of course, but there are other flavors of private clouds, I would say.
Great, thank you so much. I cannot see any other questions, open questions. Boris, is there a question you would like to provide more in-depth information live, perhaps?
Yeah, maybe I can take the opportunity. Thanks a lot, Tanja. Also concerning the question on the role of SAP Cloud ALM for the SAP Business Technology Platform. The question was if it's mandatory to use it. Here, I think on the example of cloud integration, but in general, it's not mandatory. Of course, it does provide a lot of capabilities around observability and monitoring out of the box without additional costs. Yeah, I think most of you are aware of that. You can request to get a corresponding tenant of Cloud LM in the course of the support agreement, if you have a support contract. And from that end, it's good best practice to make use of it. And we have a tight integration, as outlined also by Alex in the presentation, like this handover from monitoring then directly to further insights or even actions on the cloud platform, and the interplay with Cloud LM providing the holistic picture for an overarching, maybe also a hybrid scenario and business scenario, while then the local observability tools to provide further insights on the platform parts. But it's not mandatory. That's what I wanted to stress again. But yeah, it does provide a lot of benefits. And nevertheless, you can also use the Cloud LM being provided for your account as data proxy so that you forward also matrix and events and so on to third-party infrastructures. Thanks, Tanja.
Great, thank you. So we have another question. Will third-party ECM solution be able to connect SAP document management services through BTP? Or would you recommend to connect directly with S/4HANA?
So unfortunately, I'm not the expert for document management and ECM. I think we have to take that question with us and provide an answer offline to you.
Absolutely. This takes me exactly to the next point. Thank you, Alex. If any other questions pop up from any one of you in the chat now, or anyone who watches the video afterwards, Just put the question in the comments area underneath this video, and we will make sure that your question will be answered. So the same goes for the last question now about the third-party ECM and document management. We will provide an answer there. So no further questions. So I would like to thank you again, Alex, very much for your excellent presentation, Boris for your support in the chat, and anyone for joining. I hope you got a lot of value from this session, and I look forward to seeing you again next week. And with this, I wish you a great day, a great evening, depending on where you are. Bye-bye.